Tonight on News 5 Live, there wouldn't be an independent investigation, but Compo Chester Williams says that ACP Marco Vidal has been assigned to investigate his former boss, ex-National Security Minister John Saldivar. As the governing party remains in a leadership limbo 10 days after a huge convention, Minister Elodia Aragon says perceived crisis in his party is typical in transitions. Did the NTUCB anti-corruption demonstration meet its target? We'll hear from the leaders. The People's United Party prepares to show its muscle in a national demonstration. And there is a murder conviction. San Pedro resident Louis Carter is found guilty. Details of these stories and more coming up in tonight's newscast.
Signing up for Smart's broadband got even better. You can now bundle
Good evening. Welcome to News 5 Live for Friday, February 21st. I am Charlie Hutchinson. The new Minister of National Security, Michael Parafit, told the media on Thursday that an investigation has been launched into the allegations of wrongdoing by embattled former Minister John Saldivar. This is after text messages surfaced in a Utah court showing that Saldivar rejected a wire transfer and accepted to go to Miami to receive $50,000 US. Saldivar has admitted that he took the money from Lev Derman as campaign finances, but the unions as well as the private sector have been demanding an independent investigation. Today, News 5 attempted to get a comment from Minister of State for Police Elodio Aragon Jr., but we were referred to Commissioner Chester Williams. The Compol responded that Assistant Commissioner of Police Marco Vidal has been assigned to take on the investigation of his former ministerial boss. But contrary to what Parafit says, Williams said today that the police first needs the trial transcripts from the Utah court and any evidence presented in the case against accused fraudster Lev Derman. That trial is ongoing, and Williams says that they are awaiting its conclusion.
It is not a fly-by-night thing. There are things that we need to obtain in order to trigger the investigation. We're still, from what I have been made to understand, the matter is still ongoing in the Utah court. A final determination has not been made of the matter. So once the final determination has been made, we're going to request the transcript of the case through the mutual legal assistance treaty that we have with the U.S. and along with other things that were exhibited in court as evidence. So if it is that we can get those, or whenever we get those, then we'll be able to further the investigation more. I have identified an officer who is going to lead that investigation, and I have explained to him what the scope of the investigation is going to be.
Would there be a hesitation on the part of that officer, given the fact that it's his former boss that he's going to investigate, a former minister?
Dwayne, if it is that I have to investigate my mother, the oath of office that I took compels me to investigate my mother. So if I can investigate my mother, why won't I be able to investigate my former boss? I am sure, and for records, that officer is going to be Assistant Commissioner Marco Vidal. So I have said to him that he will be the one to lead that investigation as soon as we have obtained the relevant documents that we need for the investigation.
According to Compol Williams, the police will be working with various agencies and government departments, including the Financial Intelligence Unit and the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions in the probe. Williams, however, says that the investigation can possibly exculpate Saldivar of any wrongdoing.
Of course, if it is at the end of the investigation, the file will have to be sent to the DPP to see whether or not a crime has been committed. Because remember, an investigation is not only to show that a crime was committed, but it can also show that a crime was not committed. So investigation can also be done to exculpate somebody and not only to show that the person is guilty of having committed a crime.
The 10 unions of the National Trade Union Congress that took to the streets on Thursday were united in the fight against the rampant corruption that has invaded the government. Throughout their protest and rally, their battle cry was to stomp out the evil threat to the nation. The union says that the people are the bosses and as such, the gatekeepers for good governance. News 5's Isani Kaitano reports.
The efficacy of public demonstrations and whether messages sent by protesters do reach their intended audiences are questions that must be taken into consideration in retrospect. While some may focus on numbers in terms of turnout and participation, the purpose of taking to the streets is more about a firm position being held by the aggrieved parties. In this case, enough to send a clear and resounding message to government.
The issues is all about broken systems that we have in the nation. Our systems have been broken because persons who are in control or who we allow to be in control do not see the need to listen to us, to do things that are beneficial to us. It's all about them. It's not about the people, it's about them. This is not time for us to show them Durban and using it to suppress your people. Because when they pay your bill, that is what they are doing, they are suppressing you. When they make you feel that you can't do without their little handout, they are suppressing you. When it's time for an election and they give you at least $20 or $50 or $100 to vote for them, you are being suppressed.
The idea of corruption, however, goes beyond the ballot. BNTU President Senator Elena Smith described dishonesty for personal gain within the teaching profession.
It is giving persons who are politically connected a full license when they don't deserve it. It is giving persons 2 provisional licenses when the rules are clear that you cannot get 2 provisional licenses. It's about not paying our heads of departments on the proper scale that they should be on. Because you think and you do not have the process in place to address the matter, so because you are not ready, you're not prepared, you didn't think before, you can't pay them. That is corruption, because they are getting their big salaries.
The objective of the demonstration organized by the National Trade Union Congress of Belize was to shed light on the issue of corruption, and while dishonesty occurs in all strata of society, public and private sectors, the focus was on government.
Nowadays, it seems that it's a race of who has the most money to spend to buy the elections. Who pays the piper calls the tune. Every single politician who has accepted questionable and unregulated campaign contributions is beholden to the campaign donors, especially to those like Derman, who seem to have very deep pockets that they're very willing to throw the money around. Politicians should be beholden to the electorate, to the people of Belize, not to the special interests and the campaign donors. But that is not what is happening. We are in an era, and listen to this message, we are in a time where politicians believe that they have no choice but to dip into the public purse, illegally dip into the public purse, and go after highly questionable donations, disguised as campaign contributions, to satisfy the demands of the electorate for handouts.
Perhaps the most resounding statement that rang across Thursday's gathering of unionists is that the electorate are truly the persons in charge, and that elected officials must honor the will of the people.
That we are the boss. We are out here. We are the ones who put the politicians there. We are the lions here. And with that said, I would like to say that personally, who is supposed to get yellow card gets the yellow card. I don't know how many of you know that in my previous, I won't say life, but previous to coming to the union, I was a referee. So, who is supposed to get the yellow card? You get the yellow card. And who is supposed to get your red card? Get your red card and go. This game is not for you. We are not playing this game the way you want to play.
Reporting for News 5, I am Isana Cayetano.
Senator Elena Smith, who leads the Belize National Teachers Union as president, has indicated that Thursday's demonstration is only the beginning of major changes to come in respect of good governance. The turnout of teachers at the rally was noteworthy, with as many as 30 buses coming into the city from other parts of the country. The show of solidarity by the BNTU, however, is not a one-off partnership with its umbrella organization. In fact, Smith calls on all teachers to keep their green t-shirts handy, since unions may very well take to the streets again before the next general elections are called.
This is the start of a revolution. It is just the beginning. And for those of you who are here today, we want to put you on the alert. Keep those green shirts clean. As you go home tonight, wash them. Hang them up, iron them, get them ready. Because the fight continues. You see what? Sometimes we forget that, as we've heard in the news about the Caribbean man, right? Small thief go to jail. But It is time that we take out those small thieves and we put those big thieves in jail where they belong. That is where they belong, for raping this country, for raping our people, for keeping us in the place where we are. That we have families who can barely afford to feed their children. Yet we got country and so. It is those same persons who look at us and say to us by their actions that what you are doing is of no interest to us, because right now I am locked up in an AC room discussing who will take over this party, who will be the next leader for us. That is the important thing for them right now, to help with the people.
The scourge of corruption that continues to permeate all facets of Belizean society is not lost on Mose Hyde, who took the opportunity while addressing the masses of teachers and unionists during Thursday's rally to remind of the many patrimonies that have been sold off as a result of corruption. He went as far as discussing the illegal sale of Belizean passports.
We used to own this place outside what they call the tourism village. We used to own it. It used to be the customs and immigration place. And we don't own it anymore. Some boy, when they even want to let we in at that, own that, no. Could tell we when we could go in there and when we can't go in there and we can't even go make money in there. Just in case you think I exaggerate. Just in case you think I exaggerate, we used to own most of San Pedro. Just in case you think I exaggerate, we used to own most of Kikaka. We used to own most of Turnip. We used to play ball with a mother. They used to kick ball on the seaside, but we don't own that no more. We don't own San Pedro again. We don't own Kikaka again. We used to own most of Placencia. Now when you go through there, and it's just a big packet and who own it. Some boy where you don't know, some girl where you don't know. If you think I exaggerate. We used to own Bolido, now we don't own that no more. Just in case you think I exaggerate, Mommy and Daddy used to sell Bolido on Boulevard. No, none of them can sell Bolido on Boulevard. But we used to own it. We used to own the passport. You used to have to at least make your mommy and your daddy meet one another, your grandpa and your granny meet one another. No, that is no longer people who own your passport will never come to Belize yet. Just in case you think I exaggerate, you don't want to stop. You don't want to stop. Because I could stop. I could go home. Because that's no problem. I want to feel when you don't lose. I want to feel when you can't give. They say university students they come up there just know. None of them can ever own. When we don't make them take, sell and give away through the corruption and the manipulation and the lack of proper accountability.
Coming up, the PUP readies to stage a massive national demonstration against the government.
Hello, friends. This is Dr. Bob Roberts.
On the heels of a successful demonstration staged by the unions this Sunday, the People's United Party will descend on the Old Capitol for a national demonstration against Prime Minister Dean Barrow and his government. Party supporters will convene at the corners of Faubourg Road and Central American Boulevard, where the march will kick off along the boulevard and into Freetown Road, and thereafter into Douglas Jones Street, over the Bell China Bridge and into downtown Belize City. The march will culminate with a rally at Battlefield Park, where speeches will be delivered. The PUP says it is protesting against rampant corruption that's plaguing the Barrow administration and the management of the public's money. Party leader John Briceño says the march is expected to have the participation of thousands of Belizeans countrywide.
Sunday is going to be a massive operation, and it is requiring the work of an entire team since last week in trying to put this together. We're bringing in buses from Corozal and all the way from Toledo, from all across the country.
Do you expect a large showing?
Of course. I mean, from what we're looking at so far, we have contracted over 150 buses. A lot of private vehicles are coming in. So we feel confident when we say that we expect at least 10,000 people to come out to show their dissatisfaction, their displeasure over the corruption and the incompetence and the nastiness and the dirtiness of the UDP government.
What would be the central message that the PUP would want Dean Barrow to hear on that day?
Well, I think what's important to say that we've had enough of the UDP and the corruption and incompetence, but at the same time, we are letting the country know that we're ready. The PUP is ready to take on the UDP and to take on Belmopan and to tackle the problems that are affecting the daily lives of our citizens.
Briceño says that Sunday's march should send an unequivocal message to PM Barrow that Belizeans have had enough with corruption. The opposition leader says that the People's United Party is ready to take on the United Democratic Party whenever elections are called.
How would you react to a criticism that people might say that the PUP is being opportunistic in terms that this is an election year?
It has nothing to do with being opportunistic. What happened is that the very issues that we've been bringing up week after week, you know, in the Belize Times, in interviews, on the television, it just blew up in the face of the UDP with their national convention. They thought that that would have been like almost to help them propel them into the campaign, and it has blown up spectacularly on their face. And it just brings to forth what we've been saying, that the UDP is a corrupt government, and that it gone all the way to Utah, where a court in Utah has pointed out, here are the text messages, here is where John Saldívar was asking for money and has admitted that he has been getting money. These are some serious issues. John Saldívar could very well be charged for money laundering. We haven't heard anything about that. We haven't heard the FIU is doing a serious investigation into the money laundering aspects, but also that the U.S. government could come and ask for John Saldívar to appear in a court in the United States. This is stolen money that he was getting. Money that was stolen from the federal government of the United States of America is a serious, there's something serious, a serious charge. And John Saldívar needs to be ready if the Americans want to come and pick him up and take him to the United States to answer these charges.
The march starts at 11:30. The embattled John Saldívar continued with his media rounds this morning, appearing on the UDP's morning talk show, where he not only defended his integrity, but called the media a bunch of hypocrites. In Saldívar's world, the media is responsible for his fall from the grace of the UDP. The Minister of National Security, Michael Parafit, told News 5 on Thursday that an investigation is ongoing, but the Commissioner of Police has said not just yet. Opposition leader John Briceño questions if the police can properly investigate their former boss. Briceño says that he does not believe Parafit.
I was shocked when I heard that John Saldívar said that he has not resigned. I know that he's using the excuse that he has not sent in a written letter. I find that disgraceful. Actually, it shows the kind of person that he is, the very same man that was aspiring to lead the UDP and aspiring to lead this country, now is telling us that he's prepared to lie and do whatever it is just for him to stay in power. I think that it's disgraceful, and I think that the entire 30 standard bearers of the UDP should have immediately got up and signed the document and make it public and say, no, John Saldívar, you are not going to lead us. You have to step down, and we need to find a new leader for the UDP.
The new Minister of National Security, Mr. Perfit, said that there is an ongoing investigation into the allegations of John Saldívar. He says that we should rely and have confidence in our local authorities. The NTUCB is calling for an independent investigation.
I don't know if you would be able to believe the Attorney General, but I'm prepared to tell him to his face that I do not believe him. I do not believe that he has asked for any investigation into his colleague, John Saldívar. I do not believe him. A few years ago, the Supreme Court, the Chief Justice of this country, instructed the Commissioner of Police to hand over the file with Penner, and he refused, and I believe because he was under instructions. Do you think that today the FIU and the police department is going to investigate, in the case of the police, their former boss? Do you really believe that? And do you really believe that they are going to do a good job to really get down to the bottom of it as to exactly what has happened? I don't believe for a single second. If the Attorney General is serious about saying that they want to be shown that they are tackling the issue of corruption, then appoint an independent investigator. What does he have to hide? As we say in Spanish, el que debe, teme. When you owe, you're freed. And that's exactly what is happening to the Attorney General and the UDP.
Chief Justice Kenneth Benjamin on January 31st ruled against the government, handing down a much-anticipated verdict in which he declared that over $1 billion were spent illegally and that the Prime Minister had violated the Constitution. On February 17th, in a strongly worded letter, Prime Minister Dean Barrow made it clear to opposition leader John Briceño that the Chief Justice's ruling is considered entirely unsatisfactory and the government would be appealing and seeking a stay on the CJ's 6-month injunction. The PM also stated that the government has no intention of seeking any constitutional amendment anytime soon. Briceño today reacted to the Prime Minister's letter.
The Prime Minister is spinning. He felt that he had to say something, but he knows that he cannot appeal this judgment. He cannot appeal it simply because his own attorney that was defending him went to court and said, I know that the government broke the law. I know that the government broke the Constitution, but please try to be lenient. That's what he said. So there's absolutely no way that the Prime Minister could go and appeal. He's just trying to find some answer because he was caught, as we say, the proverbial, with his pants down.
Tonight, the United Democratic Party finds itself in a conundrum and without a clear leader to succeed Prime Minister Dean Barrow. Merely 2 weeks ago, John Saldívar emerged as leader-elect, but soon after all came crashing down, placing the governing party in a most unenviable position in the waning days of their third term in office. Many call it a crisis of leadership, but Minister Elodio Aragon Jr. says not so.
I don't think the UDP is in a crisis. It is a normal course that the United Democratic Party must take. It is in any mass party. There comes a time where a transition must be made in leadership. You all know that the Constitution of this country calls that the Prime Minister cannot serve more than 3 terms. The Prime Minister, Honorable Dean Barrow, has now reached to that end of the rope in terms of his service to this country. And I must say he has done an excellent job, but it is now a time for transition for the United Democratic Party. And what is happening right now is just a transition phase.
Sir, but that transition is bumpy, and it is playing out in the public.
Well, I don't see it as bumpy, you know. I'm telling you that there's a transition phase that must be taking place, and in any political party, of course, you have people who aspire to be leaders in this great United Democratic Party.
While we had Junior Minister Aragon on hand today at an event in Orange Walk, we asked him who is likely to emerge as the head of the party. All sorts of names are being speculated, including Amar Figueroa from Cayo North, who was elevated this week as a minister. Aragon says that the events of the past few days are not new to transitions in mass political parties. Now, the junior minister is a well-known supporter of Patrick Faber, who days ago lost the convention to John Saldivar. Aragon says he is still rallying behind Faber.
Every leader is entitled to their opinion. You know, this is the great thing about the United Democratic Party. We are open enough that leaders can speak and say, you know, what they feel, what they think. And this is all about the transition in terms of finding a new leader for the UDP. This has to be done. And I would prefer that we do what is right now, so that when we are ready to move on with the new leader, that we are set. And I prefer that than for us to just select somebody and down the road we are having a lot of issues. So I think this is due process for the United Democratic Party in the transition to new leadership. And I always want to tell people, you know, for me, I am a man who stands for what I believe, my convictions, my integrity, and I always look towards finding who would be the best leader for this party. And I've always told our people, our colleagues, we must be able to be big enough to put aside our personal issues for what is in the right interest of our party. We must be able to think properly and objectively to be able to select the right leader. We are in this leadership transition, and definitely people have very varying opinions, but at the end of the day, I am confident the United Party will unite behind the leader that they see most fit to lead this United Democratic Party. And like I said, everybody have their own opinion. Everybody knows that I support Patrick Faber. I have done so in the past. I continue to do so today because truly I believe that he is the person that can take this party to victory in its upcoming elections.
There have been 2 recent but separate murders in Hattieville in the Belize district and another in the Halls layout area of Corozal town. And in what seems like a stroke of good luck, police have a person of interest in hand. He is Kenroy Gamboa, was caught red-handed with proceeds of a robbery in Orange Walk on Wednesday. He was also found with a homemade firearm and ammunition. This afternoon, police formally arrested and charged the 20-year-old for kept ammunition without a gun license. Prior to charging Gamboa, Compol Chester Williams shared details of the investigation.
Mr. Gamboa was intercepted shortly after a robbery at a grocery store in Orange Walk town. When he was apprehended, he was found to be in possession of all the items stolen from the robbery, as well as a homemade shotgun and 3 live rounds. He will be charged by Orange Walk Police for that robbery and the unlicensed or prohibited firearm. And thereafter, he'll be taken to Corozal because his name was also called in the Corozal murder. And Hattieville police also want to see him for the murder in Hattieville. So it seemed that this Gamboa was on a rampage. We're hoping that with what is now playing out, that we'll be able to take him out of circulation for a while. I don't know how much evidence the officers in Corozal and Hattieville may have as it relates to charging him, but he is a person of interest where those 2 matters are concerned. And we're hoping that the investigation will be wrapped up in such a way that he can be charged for those as well, and then we put him away for good.
San Pedro resident Louis Carter was found guilty of murder today by Justice Colin Williams. Carter was on trial for the murder of Dwayne Hyde, a mechanic also of the island who was shot dead in 2016 inside his yard in the Escalante subdivision of San Pedro town. 2 weeks ago, Carter gave an unsworn statement from the dock saying he killed Hyde in self-defense after Hyde aggressed him in the wee hours of July 13, 2016. He said that Hyde pulled out a gun and pointed it at him. Fearing for his life, Carter said he ran, but Hyde caught up with him and they struggled for the gun, which discharged. A bullet caught Hyde in the abdomen. Hyde, who had a screwdriver, also inflicted wounds to Carter's neck, mouth, and abdomen. But in delivering his ruling today in court, Justice Williams said that he did not believe that Hyde was the aggressor. He relied on the testimony of Kimberly Humes, who was Hyde's common-law wife, who witnessed the incident. Justice Williams said that he believed that Carter sought out Hyde and shot him unprovoked. He also thought that the evidence given of the bullet wound that Hyde suffered, it was not possible that the two were struggling for the gun when Hyde was shot and died 2 weeks later from the injury. Supreme Court Justice Colin Williams will sentence Carter next week, Friday. Belize City jeweler Manuel Pacheco, who is on trial for the murder of his next-door neighbor today, pleaded with the court that he killed Jose Manuel Villanueva in self-defense. Pacheco, defended by senior counsel Ellis Arnold, told the court in an unsworn statement from the dock that on the evening when the incident happened, he asked Villanueva to move his dog from where he was tied near a window at his jewelry shop on East Collett Canal, since the constant barking over a period of days was becoming a nuisance for him and his customers. Pacheco said that Villanueva yelled, cursed him, and then went to his stairs and produced a gun and told him that he would put him down just like he put down Pacheco's dog. He said that he feared for his life and told Villanueva that he didn't want any problems. Pacheco said he then heard a loud bang, and that was when he pulled his licensed handgun and fired several shots at Villanueva. He said that he didn't want to kill Villanueva and respects Villanueva's family. I am very, very sorry, Pacheco told the court, tearfully ending his statement. Villanueva was shot dead on the evening of June 14, 2018. He and Pacheco became neighbors in 2012 when the original owner of the property subdivided and sold it as 2 separate parcels of land. Closing arguments will be heard next week. Justice Colin Williams is presiding over the trial without a jury. And stay tuned, there's much more news after the break.
My name is Natalie.
While the investigation on the alleged wrongdoing of former National Security Minister John Saldivar is yet to begin, Compol Chester Williams says digging deep into another level investigation, that of the National Sports Council. An audit by the Auditor General revealed that a number of persons were responsible at the NSC for questionable cash transactions. Among those named are former NSC Director Patrick Henry and former Minister of Sports Herman Longsworth, who was soon sacked by PM Barrow from his post as Consul General in New York after the report was released. Williams says that on February 17th, a meeting was held with the Director of Public Prosecutions and the Director of the Financial Intelligence Unit.
The DPP have met with the officers and have given certain guidelines in terms of how to proceed with the investigation. I had a meeting with the Director of FIU on Monday, I think, Monday afternoon, and we ironed out some issues as it relates to banking information we need to obtain for the persons of interest, and we're now getting those. The Director of FIU is fully on board. He is cooperating along with his department to ensure that the investigation goes through without any impediment. We are at a stage now where we are looking at bank statements and recording statements from certain people, interviewing certain persons, but again, as I said before, it is not a fly-by-night. The investigation must be done in a very meticulous manner to ensure that we don't miss nothing that we should pick up. Again, I want to ask the Belizean people, because I have heard many things, that nothing will be done, the police this and the police that. For me, people just need to understand sometimes that looking from outside, looking in, things look easy. But when you are in the belly of the beast, that's when you know how difficult it is to do certain things. And when I say difficult, I don't mean because of any kind of interference, but difficult in the sense that what needs to be done, there is a process in getting it done. And we have to ensure that we follow the process, because if we don't follow those processes, then when we go to court, we'll be wasting time.
The Commissioner of Police also shared an update on the investigation of the Julian Cho High School in the South, where huge contracts were awarded to teachers for construction work. An audit revealed that over $2.2 million were spent in contracts approved by the principal, who is Toledo East UDP standard bearer Simeon Koch. Chester Williams says that banking information are also being obtained via the Financial Intelligence Unit, and that the Major Crimes Unit has been assigned to that case.
Julian Shaw audit. I have given that to Mr. Maivit, and he have assigned the Major Crime Team from Belmopan to deal with that investigation. So that was also a part of the discussion we had with the Director of FIU as it relates to getting banking information.
This Sakot's Kancha has fallen to ruins. Residents say that for past 12 to 15 years, the once popular public venue in the village has been abandoned. They report that the derelict building poses a hazard to the community. They say that its maintenance is the responsibility of the village council, but for years the residents' cries for something to be done have fallen on deaf ears. Sakot's residents called News 5 to see the deplorable state of the condemned building. Here's the story.
This old, dilapidated structure is a shadow of what it once was. Today, there are crumbling columns, cracked walls, wrecked restrooms, rusty, mangled grills and fence, garbage underground, and a rotting roof, which are just some of the obvious signs of neglect. But if you look closer, you'll see that this place was once an important part of its community. The faded flags painted on the wall, 2 small wooden tables tossed to one side, and the lonely bare maypoles, albeit faded and old, are still standing tall. This is the San Jose Sakot's Kancha, or what's left of it. For the past 12 years or so, the once popular spot in the village has been abandoned.
This building falls under the responsibility of the chairman of the village, who's supposed to dialogue with the government for maintenance, for either changing our zinc or doing something to fix it.
Why do you think it has reached this point and just been neglected for so long?
Well, I could only blame two persons, either our representative and the chairman, who has to be dialogue with the representative to request the government for assistance for this building, but it has not been done. And actually the village council is supposed to be either doing fundraising to repair this building, but it has not been done also.
I could say our minister that was, elected in office did promise that he was going to make this cancha over again. A promise that has been gone in the air for 15 years, no progress. What we have got is, from our minister, is, I could say, nothing. Very little, very little. The cancha, as you can see, is in very, very critical and bad conditions.
The cancha is situated in the heart of the village. It has been here for more than 40 years. Many of the residents grew up attending functions on the floors of this concrete structure. From pageants to weddings to political rallies to village fiestas and workshops have been held under this roof. But about 12 to 15 years or so, all of that stopped. The cancha was more than just a venue for public events. It was a place where residents came together, a place where they nurtured, shared, and displayed their culture, and a place where they shaped the identity of their community. So for those who grew up here, to see the condition of this important piece of their community is a painful reminder of what it once stood for.
This building was very useful to the people. It helps us a lot. Many things are done here, up to cultural presentation, which we cannot do anymore.
Our culture, everything that was done at one point in time here, is no longer that vivid anymore. And probably, every day it's being dumped, I should say, but to the garbage, okay? So definitely, that's the cruel reality we are facing in this village.
As a resident of this village, how much does it pain you to see that it has fallen to ruins?
Oh, all the way to the bottom of my heart. This is terrible. And I didn't expect this to be like this.
The multi-purpose building is now an eyesore in the village. It's no longer being used, and today it presents some serious hazards to the community.
It's a pity to have something like this in our own village. This is basically at the edge of collapsing. If you look into the roof, it's terrible. The actual zincs are just flying away with the actual breeze, a very small wind. It's no longer a safe spot, I could say. During the nighttime, before it had all electricity inside. Today there's no wires, nothing. So definitely it's something that has now become a concern to the villagers.
It's no longer fit to be used. If we make too much noise on here, it will drop. Eventually it will collapse.
Have you seen that happen any at all? Anything falling off or so?
Whenever we have a little slight breeze, we could see the zincs flying off. So it is in a bad state.
At night, this is a very, very dark place. The children, actually the school children, normally during the evening time would come around this area to play. But if you notice, like the roof itself can tell you how dangerous it would be today. Let's say, for example, a child or children would be playing here and all of a sudden this collapse. It will definitely become a tragedy.
The community center, they say, is being shared by a school and the village council. So now the village doesn't have a proper venue to host public events anymore. And residents want this condemned building to be demolished and for the responsible authorities to address this problem.
We can do this. The community will be willing to help if the president representative and the village councillors come up with an idea to work this out.
As you can see, it's very close to the police station. Although it's near the police station is bright and beautiful, I could say, recently done. But what about our cancha?
Reporting for News 5, I'm Andrea Polanco.
When we come back, as deaths associated with the coronavirus continue to go up, we'll tell you how the Ministry of Health here is keeping pace with testing.
This is a message
The number of deaths due to the coronavirus continues to climb, and it is reported that at least 1,100 persons have died, while far more, about 45,500 persons, have been sickened by the virus. The Ministry of Health here is working on overdrive to put in place systems should the virus find its way to Belize. Here is News 5's Hipólito Novello with a report.
Two health professionals, Quality Assurance Coordinator Celso Carrera and Medical Laboratory Technologist Ruby Aguillon, journeyed to Mexico City to receive a 2-day practical training on the detection of the COVID-19 virus that has health officials in Belize on high alert.
We have algorithms of how we will diagnose, how we will treat each patient, because we won't be testing everybody at the moment. We brought the reagents, primers and probes for the testing, and so basically this week we set up the test, and we had a trial run, and well, that's where we are right now. We are up and ready to start screening for the new coronavirus.
As the new coronavirus makes its way across the borders, at the Central Medical Laboratory in Belize City, Carrera, Aguillon, and other health professionals have acquired the knowledge and equipment to quickly detect the new disease. Samples are received by the biological units, and with primers and probes, tests are carried out to do initial screening for COVID-19.
The first thing we need to do is to screen the documentation that comes along with the sample. And after screening the documentation, the first procedure is to test for influenza B, influenza A, and other respiratory viruses, which includes the common coronavirus that is circulating here. So after doing that through PCR, then we interpret the results. After interpreting the results, then we would determine if we need to do the screening for the new coronavirus strain. And if we do not need to do this screening, then we release the results to the different institutions with the findings that we obtain and the reason why we're not testing for the new strain of coronavirus.
And that reason is that the possibility of co-infection is extremely low. If the virus is detected, Aguillon says that further testing is conducted. Reagents are utilized on suspected cases.
And then we proceed to the second room, which is the master mix room. That is a sterile or clean room where we prepare our reagents that we're going to use to analyze our specimen. Those reagents include primers, probes, and so that's the room we use. No sample is allowed to enter there in order for us to keep the room clean and free of contamination. And then we have a third room, which is the amplification room. In that room, we already combine the reagent and the sample, and then we have machines which are used to analyze the sample and determine if the target we are looking for is present in that specific sample.
If a sample is tested positive for COVID-19, a protocol is followed and key persons in the Ministry of Health and Government are informed, which leads to an emergency plan being activated to prevent the spread of the virus.
Professionally wise, this is a plus for the country, and not only the country. If we look at the region, right, because the virus can come through Guatemala, it can come through Mexico, you know. So we have this regional approach whereby if the whole region is in unity and everybody is screening, so when the virus does reach, let's say, Mexico, the alarm will be triggered. So now here in Belize, we are already prepared to respond to this.
Reporting for News 5, Hipólito Novello.
On Wednesday, the government and UNICEF launched the National Protocol for Integrated Protection for Children and Adolescents during Emergency and Disaster Situations. It's a disaster risk reduction document that researchers have put together to deal with emergency preparedness and responses processes during times of disasters. Here's more from the research team and UNICEF.
Today, we're here to launch a set of guidance documents, and this is a national protocol that will offer integrated protection to children and adolescents during emergency and disaster situations. So essentially, we've conducted field work through consultations in our country with adults as well as with children, and we have conducted fieldwork in the Caribbean. What is important to share is that our Belize team has led a pioneering research to add another layer of emergency preparedness, but this time focusing on how to include children and adolescents. We want stakeholders to tell us what are some of the training needs going forward, how can we disseminate this protocol, because obviously it will move from a publication into action. So this afternoon, we're going to guide them through scenarios and have them use the concrete actions that are suggested in the document to help us to know where we would start in its implementation. And this is perhaps a phase that will continue. There will be an evolution of the document, but what's important is that we start implementing and that we can grow in 1 year, in 2 years, or in 3 years in how to better protect children and adolescents using many of the interventions, many of the policies and programs that already exist. So it's just now, how do we bring that ecosystem together? How do we synergize or tie these different mechanisms?
UNICEF has supported this process because our partners, together with our partners, we recognize that there was a gap in our emergency preparedness and response processes in terms of consideration of children, and that meant that our response was not adequately catering for and building the capacity for us to cater to the needs of children. The protocol that is being launched today spells out specifically how we can improve integrated support to make sure that we are prepared to respond to the particular needs and threats to children in the face of disaster, but also how we can coordinate more effectively to respond during a disaster and following a disaster so that children are resilient, but also so that they're able to come out of these disaster situations better able to rebound and to recover and to achieve their full potential.
Coming up after the break, a police station reopens to bring security to citizens up north.
To our pedestrians,
Limited, a port with a global perspective.
Minister of State for the Police, Elodio Aragon Jr., says 2 police stations are to open in the Orange Walk district. The first is in Guinea Grass, where residents can now feel a sense of security now that the police station is functional with 2 officers. Today, an official opening ceremony was held, and News 5's Dwayne Moody has that story.
It has not been operational for some time, but today, after some much-needed retrofitting, the police station in Guinea Grass Village was officially reopened. The facility will be permanently manned by 2 officers, including a corporal of police, who will provide services to villagers who would have otherwise had to travel to Orange Walk Town for police assistance. Minister of State with responsibility for the police, Elodio Aragon Jr., says that the village is one of the most populated in the Orange Walk South Division, and the permanent presence of law enforcement provides residents with an added sense of security.
It's very important because a community as large as this one requires the security forces to be readily available. So I feel very good about that. I know that this station has been closed for a while because of the ongoing renovations, etc. And of course, it all comes down to funding, finding the necessary resources to be able to prepare and have an adequate place for police officers to operate from. So today's renovation has now seen 2 new police officers being posted out here that will be working full-time out here in this community. They have a motorcycle with them right now to operate from here, and Commissioner is making other arrangements to have another cycle posted out here so that they could have the transportation they need to patrol in this village. It is very important to security for everybody, and I think every community having a police substation with police officers, I think, goes a long way.
Now, according to statistics, the Orange Walk district did not contribute to the major crimes in 2019, but the station, as well as other community police work, is expected to further reduce crime. The reopening of the newly refurbished station comes at a time when Compol Chester Williams is on his nationwide tour.
The station is self-sustained. In terms of the village, again, we're moving away from one-man station. We believe that having 1 police officer at any police station is not conducive to the officers' health and safety. And so we are now having a minimum of 2 police officers at every substation across the country. That way the officers will be able to support each other as they conduct their daily tasks. Again, you know that the Guinea Grass area, we have seen a few incidents in the past. And with the station now reopened, the officers will be able to do proactive policing with a view to see how they can prevent things from occurring within the village. And so we're pretty optimistic that the station will service the people of this community very well, and it will enhance the relationship between the police and the villagers.
According to Aragon, a groundbreaking will take place in March for the construction of a new police station in Carmelita Village, which will serve the 5 villages in the Orange Walk East Division. Dwayne Moody for News 5.
Earlier this month, the Commissioner of Police commenced a nationwide tour of the regions. The first stop was in San Pedro, and today he traveled up north to Orange Walk, where he, along with Minister of State for Police, Elodio Aragon Jr., met with the rank and file of the department in that northern district. Chester Williams says that the objective is to do a post-mortem of the accomplishments and failures of the department by region.
I will be meeting with them and outline to them what are our plans for 2020, and at the same time hear from them what are their views, what are their concerns, to see how we can use that as well to enhance whatever plans we have moving forward. I believe again that once management maintain communication with the lower ranks, it will only breed greater work environment and greater success, because people don't feel like they are in a system where they cannot voice their concern or their opinions. I try to have a transparency style of leadership where I consult with the rank and files with a view to see how we can make our policies as best as they can be to make the respective communities safer for everyone.
The officers in command in both San Pedro and Orange Walk were honored by the COMPOL earlier this year for the success of keeping crime down in their respective communities. While there is a new Minister of National Security, Elodio Aragon Jr. remains as Junior Minister in the ministry with responsibility for police. But he is also now tasked with the day-to-day administration of the entire portfolio. Aragon Jr. says he has since met with the Belize Coast Guard and the Belize Defense Force, but he told us today that he is focusing on the Belize Police Department, an area where he has experience having served in the force for long years before entering politics.
As a Minister of State, I'll definitely be having more responsibilities in terms of the day-to-day activities of the police department and the entire Ministry of National Security, which includes the BDF, Coast Guard, prisons, forensics, and the BDF, of course. So these are the scope of our work, and definitely of all of these ministries, I think the one that stands out the most is that of the police department, and definitely that is my forte. And that is the area I want to focus on a lot too. Not that the rest don't need the focusing, but I do think that this is the department that interacts with the public on a day-to-day basis. So it is the area of concern for our people nationally, and that is why we have to focus on the strategies that needs to be employed to see a more effective police department.
And that's the news. Don't forget that tonight's broadcast is available in both text and streaming video at channel5belize.com. You can also connect with us on our Facebook page at facebook.com/News5Live. I'm Charlie Hutchinson. Thanks for joining us, and from all of us here at News 5, have a happy and safe weekend. Good night.